Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss some of the details of Liz Truss's energy plan, which just seems to be a verbatim wish list from the climate change denying extreme right wing of the Tory party. For anyone wondering if Truss really would be a puppet of the ERG, her statement in Parliament today was pretty strong evidence for it. It's also worth noting, for those who were trying to kid themselves, that Truss did well in PMQs yesterday. Starmer ripped her a new one in the debate today. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'm quite well aware that the massive news today would be that, as I record this, there's news that the Queen's health is not good. Like, understatement, not good. However, I don't think there's any political commentary appropriate right now. Quite happy to discuss things in tomorrow evening's stream if it seems necessary, and it may well be, unfortunately. It will be a big deal. The UK is unravelling very quickly. It's like our defences were actually finally shot down in 2016. Everything's failing. Everything's failing. The Queen has been our head of state for longer than most of us have been alive, and it's almost like soon nothing will be the same anymore, regardless of your views on monarchy or otherwise. It'll be another national jolt that could change the course of things. We've had a few of these. COVID did it. The Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine did it. But that sort of talk's for later. What I do want to talk about is Liz Truss's energy plan and Labour's response to it. Now, first of all, the anticipated part of the scheme, the main part of the scheme, and the only part which has anything good about it, Liz Truss has promised to freeze energy bills at £2,500 per year for the next 2 years. She also promised similar support for businesses without being clear about what it is, but over a shorter period of time, and no real details announced. It sounds like there might be a cap on energy costs for businesses, but I don't think it was explicitly stated. But that would be good, but only for 6 months. And after that, there'll be targeted support for what did she call them? Vulnerable sectors or something? I'm guessing that means businesses based in marginal constituencies and those who donate to the Tory party. Yes, cynical again. We'll see, but that's usually how it works out. But the freeze on energy bills. Now, how does it compare to Labour's? Well, it means paying higher energy costs, because Labour's scheme was to freeze the cost as it is now. Liz Truss is doing a halfway house. So Labour's freeze would be what, £1,950 a year, thereabouts. This one's £2,500. So hers idea is people will still pay hundreds of pounds a year more, which can be ill afforded by those on low incomes already. And it doesn't include Labour's proposal for insulating homes so people won't need as much, for example, in next winter. Finally, it's not been properly costed. I mean, you would expect it to have at least been costed. It is going to mean extra borrowing. That's inevitable. This means higher taxes later on. The way borrowing works is the government has to sell more government bonds, essentially, and it has to promise a better return in order to attract investors to buy them. The dividend is serviced as part of the government spending, so more of the tax revenues go to servicing that debt, and that means less is left for investing in public services. Whereas Labour's plan was to tax some of the windfall profits of oil companies. Now, it's worth pointing out here, for those who didn't watch the debate, Starmer was absolutely on fire. I try and avoid saying things like that because, people will say that about whomever they are politically aligned with. But some people were unimpressed with PMQs yesterday. And I said weeks ago, don't expect too much from the first PMQs. You can't land any blows. You can't, because the new PM wouldn't have any policies to attack. This today was the first time Truss has presented any policy to Parliament as Prime Minister. And Starmer just shot it down. He said energy companies were going to be seeing windfall profits of £170 billion in this period, over this 2 years. Now, be clear, that's windfall profits, not actual profits. The actual profits are way higher. When we say windfall profits, we mean the profits that are entirely down to the energy crisis. Not business decisions, not doing things more efficiently or anything like that. Just down to the crisis. Profits that have got nothing to do with business decisions. Profits that these companies never forecast in any business plan. It's unexpected money landing on their doorstep that nobody worked for. Nobody planned for it. Nobody worked for it. Just money that's appeared for them. Why shouldn't the government tax some of it? I mean, you could make an argument for taxing all of it. You didn't plan for this, we'll have it. But, there's surely no good reason not to tax any of it. Especially when you consider that Truss's plan does mean taxing ordinary working households for the full sum required. Yesterday in PM Quiz, we said, Labour just want to raise taxes. She's the one raising taxes. She's the one raising taxes. This is an energy plan that applies a tax on the UK public to pay for corporate profits. As an aside, Starmer also put Theresa May back in her box. Boris Johnson had recently started talking about nuclear energy. Just when the energy crisis started, didn't mention a word about it before, did he? But he was trying to claim, the reason we're in this is Labour. Labour put us in this vulnerable position because they blocked nuclear. Theresa May tried the same line because she interrupted Starmer, not rudely in the way you're supposed to, and asked why Labour had done this. And now my response would simply to say, hang on a minute, Labour pushed renewable energy. If you'd have carried on down that path, we would now not need anywhere near the level of fossil fuel generation. It would be virtually all renewable, virtually all of it. Proper clean energy. But in actual fact, Starmer's response, frankly, politically, was way better. He started off by saying that he recalls Tony Blair backing nuclear and ridiculing David Cameron for not being able to say what his policy was, which is perfectly true. Tony Blair absolutely stitched up David Cameron. He also reminded her that Labour authorised the construction of a new generation of nuclear power and that it was the Tories that stopped the plans when they came to power. So any Tory MP who tries that one again would be a bit reckless because it'll backfire badly. The bottom line is our energy vulnerability is down to the party that's been in power for the last 12 and a half years now. I mean, I can give you a list as long as your arm about policies from the last Labour government that helped secure our energy security. Remember what the problem is now. What is the problem? Energy generation from gas. That's the problem. That is the problem. No other form of energy generation is a problem right now. It's only that produced from gas. The last Labour government installed policies that would move us away from that, secure our energy security. The Tories stopped them all. And it's not even like they brought any out of their own. Starmer also pointed out how they stopped onshore wind, how Liz Truss personally crushed increases in solar energy. And again, what did the Tories introduce? Nothing. What did they do to steer us away from this dependence on foreign imports for our energy production? Nothing. They returned us to reliance on fossil fuels, for which we are now paying the price. But an expensive system of giving us higher bills than Labour were proposing was not the extent of the energy plan. As I said, a real wish list for far right-wing ideology. The green levy's gone. So now basically green energy is going to be fully taxed and dirty energy is going to get tax breaks. Fracking's going to be restarted tomorrow. I mean, obviously they can't start fracking tomorrow, but they're going to remove the block on it tomorrow. Starmer quoted the new Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, on this one, who said earlier this year that fracking wouldn't help in the slightest, and he's not wrong. The Tories talk about fracking and like North Sea oil and gas as if there's some national resource. They're not, because they let private companies, foreign private companies, exploit them, and the products are sold on the international market. I'm not saying the government get no benefit. I mean, they've been making extra tax revenues off the sale of it, but if we ever see any shale gas being used for UK energy production, which is unlikely, it'll be by paying the same price as gas from anywhere else. We'll be buying it at full international market prices. And in fact, we're not likely to use very much of it because shale gas, I understand it, it's easier to liquefy and export. So you tend to do that. We'll not buy any of it ourselves. It won't be worth it. Truss also tried to claim that windfall taxes block investment and that it's not a conservative thing to do. Well, there's three things there. First, Starmer reminded people in an interview earlier, I think it was, that the head of BP has said that a windfall tax would not affect investment in the slightest. I mean, of course it wouldn't. It's a tax on windfall profits. Investments based on business plans. The business plan doesn't include these profits. And speaking of BP, it was an interesting time for Truss's leadership contest donations to be published. Some interesting ones, as you might imagine. It shows that her biggest donation came from the wife of a former BP executive. Funny that. Second thing to note is that Thatcher applied a windfall tax on oil companies during her time in office. So it's not immediately obvious how someone identifying as a Thatcherite could call it unconservative. And third, even let's say it did block investment, which is nonsense. I mean, the head of BP said it's nonsense. It is nonsense, even in theory. But let's say, who cares? If a company getting to keep all of its windfall profits will invest a bit, we're only going to get what they decide to invest. And remember, not all of that investment translates to money in our economy, wages, whatever, taxes. But if the government taxes them, they can take what they want. You know, if they leave them to invest, maybe they invest 5% of it and maybe 1% of it ends up in the UK economy. Whereas the government can say, well, we'll tax 50% of it. You know, you keep half, we'll keep half. How about that? Or more. They can take what they want. Keep your investment, a sensible government could say. We'll just tax those profits which we weren't even budgeting for anyway, and we'll invest it ourselves. But no, this plan is actually very strong evidence that Truss is just going to do whatever the far right of the party tells her to. I am seriously now thinking there's a real possibility, I'm not going to say I think this is the case, but I think there's a real possibility that she may not care about winning the next election, or at least not trying to. Maybe she thinks that unless she can steal it, that she's buggered anyway. Maybe she just thinks she can't win. And if she doesn't think she can win the election anyway, why not give herself a couple of easy years complying with the blackmailers in her party for an easy life? Only it's just possible that lots of other Tories may object to this path. But I'll try and find time to talk about that tomorrow. But in summary, I would say the two good parts of this plan is it does limit energy bills, albeit at a higher level than Labour were proposing, and it will cool inflation down. Again, not as much, but it will cool inflation down compared to forecasts. On the flip side, it works against efforts to combat climate change. It weakens our energy security for the future. In addition, the statement gave no details about how it all works in reality. You know, all it was it's like Boris Johnson stating aims. She's going to do this and this and this, but there were no costings. There was no explanation about what they do with Northern Ireland, because there's a different thing there. There's no details about how the energy bills will actually be frozen. Now, it might sound like it's obvious, but it's not actually. There's different ways to do that. There's no details on exactly what help businesses can expect. I mean, it's good that they can expect some, but she didn't really say what. Absolute travesty of a statement today. And we may be getting ready for a couple of years of this, unless, as I say, she so badly misjudges the public mood that the polls go extremely badly next year. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.